Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, a very public fight between the governor and the state's schools chief, and questions over why the governor replaced the director of child safety. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Howard Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Bob Christie of the Associated Press. Governor Ducey and Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas are having a bit of a disagreement.
Well, as political theater, this Ducey-Douglas battle is something we probably haven't seen since the days of Evan Mecham and Attorney General Bob Corbin back in the 80s. And it started with Superintendent Douglas firing two of the members of the staff at the Department of Education, the board's executive secretary and an assistant, setting off perhaps a bit of a constitutional crisis because Governor Ducey says she doesn't have the authority to do that, and thus unraveled one of the more interesting chapters in recent Arizona political history.
And what's fascinating is on Wednesday after she fired him, and on Thursday morning after the governor said, no, she doesn't have the authority, the official word was, we're not going to comment, it's a personnel matter. Well, by Thursday afternoon, we all got one of the more bizarre press releases we had seen, talking about Doug Ducey giving away millions of dollars for his corporate cronies, setting up a shadow function of charter school operators in the Board of Education, and essentially accusing him of racism because he hasn't appointed any African-American members of the board. Well, he hasn't appointed anyone to the board, but that seemed to have escaped Ms. Douglas.
And real quickly, it was caught in the middle of all these accusations and complaints. The governor's refused to take calls or meetings with me personally since his swearing in. Yes. That might have tipped the whole thing right there, as far as the reaction being that personal and that
also,
strong.
last week, the governor held a teletown hall on education issues and did not invite the highest elected education official in the state. So that didn't go down very well.
Well, I think he was afraid what she might say. You know, that's the problem. He has a very narrow agenda in terms of more money for classrooms, and we've talked about the shell game on that. And he didn't want to get into the whole Common Core and charter schools and everything else. And if you let her in and somebody asks a question, and Lord knows she's got followers, they showed up at the board meeting today, all of a sudden his narrow message gets blown up.
And Bob, again, the idea is she fires these two people on the board. The governor says, you can't fire people on the board. She says, oh, yes, I can. And he says, oh, no, you can't.
Exactly. And the way it went down was really weird because she had, it's the executive director and the deputy executive director of the Board of Education, which is separate from the Department of Education. It's actually the policy-making body. The governor appoints 10 of the 11 members of that. Diane Douglas is a member of the board. And then they have an executive staff. Well, she didn't like the executive staff. She thought the executive staff embraced Common Core, which she hates, and wouldn't listen to what she wanted to say. So she had him escorted out by DPS. One of them was escorted out, the other one wasn't in the building. And I asked the governor the next day when he said, no, that's not going to stand. Well, did you have him escorted back in? Well, no, he didn't go quite that far. This is an institutional turf battle, basically. Diane Douglas was elected against Common Core. The Board of Education is the policy-setting body for the state, and she wants to have control of that. And constitutionally, she can't, according to the governor.
Well, what's interesting is this gets into the discussion we have every few years about whether certain officers should be elected or appointed. Look, the fact is the superintendent of public instruction has a huge budget, you know, like close to $3.8 billion, but most of that is just passed through going to the public schools. It's largely an administrative post where you are keeping track of records, you're keeping track of test scores, you're funneling federal grants through.
Well, yeah,
and it's the board that's theoretically under the Constitution sets the policy.
But that said, there still appears to be an open legal question about was Douglas acting within her authority or was she not? And there was a meeting of the Board of Education today. I think there was some thought that perhaps there'd be a move to go to court to settle this coming out of that meeting. That has not happened, but I think it's probably going to take a court decision to clarify this or new legislation.
And the new legislation is what she kind of backpedaled a little bit today, saying, all right, I don't want to get into a court fight here, don't want to waste money, she said, but for the court fight, let's clarify this by statute. Is this going to be clarified by statute?
It could be. It depends on whether the governor wants to throw her a bone or not. I mean, I think that this was a direct affront on the governor's power, and the governor reacted quickly. Which is the amazing thing to me is that the governor did, she pushed the governor, and the governor pushed back immediately. So we're seeing these two people who've only been in office 5 or 6 weeks testing their wings.
And why not try to clarify it with legislation? Who would sign that bill into law?
But here's the problem. The problem is what happens between today and let's even assume you could rush a bill through and have it signed in 2 weeks. What happens to Christine Thompson? The board's position is, I think if Diane had said at today's board meeting, we will let Christine stay in the interim while we work it out, that would have solved the whole thing. Diane said, I don't know if I'm going to let him in. So at 8:30 on Tuesday morning, Monday being a holiday, we're all going to be down at the Board of Education, and we're going to see what happens when Christine tries to go in. Because the order from the board was to let them have access to their offices, computer equipment, email accounts, cell phones, and documents to fulfill the duties for the board. Let's see what Diane does.
The order from the board by virtue of a vote with one dissenting vote.
I wonder who that could be.
Yes. And again, back to now what this is all about. Douglas seems to say that the board hires and fires on her recommendation, whereas it sounds as if the governor says, no, you can recommend all you want, but the board hires and fires on its own. Is that basically
That's essentially it. And it goes, there is actually, I don't know the history of it because I wasn't in Arizona in 1985, but former Attorney General Bob Corbin was asked by the board 30 years ago to provide an opinion on who controls Department of Education employees. It was the reverse back then. Apparently the board wanted to fire someone who worked for the superintendent of public instruction. And Bob Corbin at the time said, nope, those are two distinct operations. The Board of Education runs its staff, and the superintendent of public instruction runs the Department of Education staff. There's too many names.
Now where it gets real interesting is the statute does say that the board gets to hire its executive director on recommendation of the superintendent of public instruction, which raises an interesting question. Let's assume that Christine is gone. She makes a recommendation saying, I want this. They say, no, we want someone else. Well, a plain reading of the statute says they can only choose from the list of one that she's given.
Yes.
Except if a judge looks at this, you look at actual practice. And in this case, the board held an agended meeting where they hired their executive director. So if they can hire them, and they have to have a vote to hire them, common practice in the world is, you have to do the same thing.
And what's part of what we got into today was what has been the practice. Jaime Malera, Tom Horn, Lisa Graham Keegan all sent a letter to Greg Miller, who's chairman of president of the board, and saying, you're right. John Huppenthal, who was the immediate predecessor who Diane defeated in the primary, basically told me, no, Diane's right. So now we've got a question of what is precedent.
And I think, this tangle aside, what this does is it does highlight that, that the GOP coalition is not quite all hanging together. I mean, they were all, the state offices are all Republican controlled, but, Ducey and Douglas have really split company, and I think her press release, which I just got to say, I loved the headline just for pure drama. Arizona Superintendent of Public Schools Diane Douglas did not see Doug Ducey's name on the ballot for state superintendent.
We're talking snarky stuff here.
It is. Yes. It is the most. I think I called it vitriolic in one of the stories I wrote. Press releases I've seen, and what it does in real effect is marginalize Diane Douglas, because the governor is new in office. He's the governor of the state of Arizona. And another elected official throws not just one hand grenade, but like 8 paragraphs full of hand grenades at the governor. It's just not smart.
All right, look at it from the other side. Was the governor smart to go ahead and make announcements and pronouncements on this without having maybe an underling do it or someone from his office do it or that sort of thing?
I was honestly surprised when I caught up with him on Thursday morning. I thought he was going to say, well, we're studying it and we may have to amend the law. He made it very clear. Me, governor. Board members, mine.
Yeah.
Diane, not so much. And this is a power struggle. Now, what's real interesting, when you get deep down into the stuff, her charges about how the governor favors charter schools and everything else, and how he's refusing to settle, in some ways, she's the populist. She's the one who says, wait, we're supposed to settle the lawsuit over school inflation funding. We're not supposed to be funneling all the money into charter schools. And her belief that the new test linked to Common Core is going to drop public school test scores so folks will go running to the charter schools.
Clearly, he has established a shadow faction of charter school operators and former state superintendents who support Common Core and who support moving funds from traditional public schools to charter schools. That's a Republican saying that.
Yes.
That's a Republican saying that. You know, the interesting thing is last week, her new chief of staff,
Michael Bradley.
Michael Bradley, testified in front of the Appropriations Committee in the House, or the Education Committee, and said, you know, I want to let you all know that I know she campaigned on getting rid of Common Core, but that was because she was a clean elections candidate. And, you know, she really doesn't mean it. What she wants to do is move Common Core slowly over the next 10 years in a better direction and change it and mold it. And I watched that and I go, that's interesting. Let me tuck that away. And no, then we have this week.
Well, I think, one of the things that she did with this, this 8 paragraphs of very interesting prose is that she articulated what a lot of people have sort of been saying, yeah, that is the governor's education agenda. It is, many people believe that he's out to benefit charters only. He says, no, I'm not. This is going to help district schools as well, but we have not yet seen any details of his proposal. And absent those details, people are filling in saying, well, we do see all these charter school operators around him, and we see these choice favoring, school superintendents standing behind him. So she sort of just said what was on a lot of people's minds.
And what goes along with that is her comments about giving tax breaks to his cronies while screwing the public schools.
Justification to deprive schools of hundreds of millions of dollars to give his corporate cronies tax cuts.
Well, this is the issue. There are tax cuts that have not, we talked about in the show, that have not yet kicked in for major corporations, a couple of $100 million. And you could solve much of the budget problem, not all of it, by just simply saying, well, we're just going to freeze the tax cuts that are already there. He said, no way. Meanwhile, while he keeps talking about the $134 million he says he's putting in the classrooms, that's a shell game. Most of that comes from other funds of district funding. We're talking $11 million out of close to $4 billion.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing really there.
Absolutely true.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. With school funding, the issue, the governor in his budget provided an extra $74 million to fund inflation. Well, the judge has already ruled you owe $331 million now and $336 million on July 1st for schools, and they're just ignoring it. They're pretending it's not there. They're saying we're going to settle it, but they're not putting the money in there to do it. And Diane Douglas, as both Mary Jo and Howie said, is saying, no, you need to restore this money.
And if this now is headed to court, Attorney General Mark Brnovich has to say bye-bye to both sides. He has conflict of interest.
And he has. He conflicted out within an hour of the fight breaking out.
He couldn't wait to get
Duck
out of
the
that.
bullet.
Yeah.
Bullets,
The Board of
yes.
Education had a new attorney there, Mary O'Grady, who's well respected and for doing a lot of election things and a lot of other government action. Diane Douglas asked, well, who appointed her? And the board president, Greg Miller, said, well, actually, the Attorney General called me and said, well, I'm not going to represent you. Here's an attorney who will.
Yeah, and this is the thing. We still haven't really gotten an answer about who she's getting her legal advice from. I don't think we ever got a call back on that.
In this press release, she attacked the head of the Board of Education, implying that he was trying to line his pockets, because he's a charter school operator,
Yes.
by implementing the new AZ merits tests and therefore making schools fail, which would drive more people to his charter school.
Yes.
Which
And
was an
which-
accusation that Howie, I believe he responded
I
to.
believe he said, this is wonderful. I love this stuff. I wasn't personally offended because I took it as the rantings of someone who's under emotional stress.
Oh boy.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, that's one. Maybe
Yeah.
reword that one or try to figure. I don't know.
I asked him to repeat it, as I asked the question initially, and I said, say it just a little bit louder for the microphones. He says, no thanks.
Yeah, thought the better.
But
of it. So basically, we're not going to wait until Tuesday morning to see who goes to their office and who doesn't go to their, who's escorted in, the locks change.
What happens is there is a security guard there are two entrances to the building. One is pretty much locked, and you go in the back through security. Now, there's no metal detector, there's no special badges or something like that, but the folks who are employees just sort of walk in. If she puts security there and says these people are not allowed in, we'll all be there with our cameras.
Isn't this stunning? I mean, really, I mean, there probably is an important legal question that needs to get settled here, but the money it's going to take to do that, while we have closed door talks going on over, adequate funding for the schools.
Yeah.
I mean, hello, there's a bunch of school children,
Here's the other side of this. In fact, they're going to keep getting paid. Do you know who does the payroll? The Department of Administration. Do you know who the Department of Administration reports to? Doug Ducey.
Which is how the governor went around Douglas. He called the ADOA and said, no, they're still on the payroll.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. As we try to get that, who cares about schools, Howie? We got the school's chief and the governor going at it, and the kids are still, you're still trying to,
Yes.
do your A, B's, and C's. The governor actually made a move this week as well, and that raised a couple of eyebrows. Talk to us.
Yes, Governor Ducey did his share of firing this week and called a news conference to announce the appointment of his new director of the Department of Child Safety, which meant that Charles Flanagan, who's been basically in charge since December of 2013, is out. This is a brand new agency. It didn't become an official state agency until June. They've got a big ship to turn around, a lot of problems over there. And the governor just said, well, I'm going in a new direction. And what is that direction? Child safety.
I thought Flanagan was the celebrated savior of all things children. What's going on here, Howie?
You could, if you want to interpret upward and give everyone the benefit of the doubt, you could say Flanagan was brought in as the troubleshooter. Flanagan had been there of the head of the Office of Child Welfare.
McKay.
I'm sorry, McKay had been there to take a look, and he was the one who discovered the 6,600 cases of non-investigated cases. That meant that we had to take the control away from the head of Department of Economic Security. Well, who do you give it to? Well, Flanagan headed Department of Juvenile Corrections. He came in as the troubleshooter. He was the fixer, based on that. Now, the question becomes going forward, do you want a fixer in there or do you want someone else? Now, putting McKay in is interesting because McKay is a cop, got no management experience at all. In fact, the governor had to appoint a deputy director who came out of private industry. So it's an interesting question of what does he expect him to do? What are they expecting of the agencies? Is this a tilt toward taking more kids from home? Or is this a tilt toward reconciliation and prevention?
That was the question that immediately came to mind. I mean, the vast majority of CPS or DCS cases are not criminal abuse cases. They're neglect cases. And there's been a lot written and a lot of studies done that as Arizona cut its support for low-income families and marginal families and people with families with some drug abuse problems or alcohol abuse problems, that the numbers of neglect cases skyrocketed. That's where the majority of our problem came from. And yes, there's high-profile criminal cases where childs are criminally abused, and that's what McKay was in to fix. But
Well, also central to this is Maricopa County Attorney Bill Montgomery. He's actually been more forthcoming about perhaps the reasons for this than the governor and his staff have been thus far. And Montgomery, who is a big fan of Greg McKay and helped to get Greg McKay installed as the head of the investigations unit, Montgomery said, look, we had an email exchange between him and Flanagan, and they had Montgomery, the county attorney, had a lot of questions about this backlog at the department. And it's not really shrinking much. What's happening? How is that happening? This, again, is an agency that first, Charles Flanagan comes in, they got to deal with these 6,600 cases that had been set aside and deliberately not looked at. He had to go through all those. Meantime, there's already a backlog. Then that backlog grows.
And there are cases coming in, and this becomes the problem.
Is Montgomery expecting that when you focus on these 6,600 heretofore unknown cases, that everything else is just going to go swimmingly? I mean, there has to be.
Well, the other part of it is that they have had money. We've seen how much they've added to the budget, a couple of $100 million over several years, but it takes a while to train people. It takes a while to get people up to speed, and we still have a lower staff to caseload ratio, maybe a higher one, depending on how you look at it, than is recommended nationally. In other words, you've got caseworkers carrying more cases than they should be solving. So then you wonder, well, how come they're not resolving the cases? Well, ask me. I can tell you.
Flanagan's a manager. Flanagan is a top-notch state bureaucratic manager, and he was very good at going in and taking that agency that had been floundering and had gotten lazy in its ways, getting those 6,600 cases fixed over a short period of time. It was amazing that they actually were able to do it. And then standing up a new agency, but he's a bureaucrat, and he and Greg McKay, I'm told, clashed quite often.
Okay, with that in mind, Greg McKay comes in. Apparently a memo is sent out with like a suggestion that the DCS was close to breaking the law. Criminal liability due to ignorance of some leadership, won't tolerate artificial measures or bad faith.
Yeah,
What's that all about?
This was new Director McKay's sort of introductory letter to the staff of 3,000 odd people, and yeah, it was rather remarkable. Therefore, it was worth writing about because he seemed to be hinting very strongly that there had been some kind of illegal activity going on. He won't elaborate on it. He's not available for comment. The governor's office isn't commenting on this, which leads you to think, well, is there maybe this gives us more context to Flanagan's removal and McKay's ascension, but without details, we just don't know.
And that becomes the problem, given that so much of the individual case files are pretty much off limits. So we're trying to find out, well, what are illegal activities? Obviously the non-investigated cases were illegal activities.
But that was someone else's watch.
That was someone else's watch. So the question does become, everyone in the governor's office says, well, we're not saying that there was any criminal activity going on there, but this was just saying going forward, don't do it. I've seen consent judgments like that. We didn't do it and we won't do it again.
Yeah, like Howie, please stop being a homicidal maniac.
Yes.
Okay, don't ever do that.
I won't do that again.
All right,
but
thank you.
we'll clean up the bodies later.
I'll hold off the memo then. And Bill Montgomery, the quote was, "We've seen the system regress."
Yes. Yeah, and I think he's looking at the amount of backlog cases, and again, being a prosecutor, he's getting a look at some of the cases that McKay's former unit, the investigative unit, might be sending over for some kind of prosecution.
Okay, the last question on this, is this, whether it's CPS, DCS, you put the letters in there, when it's dealing with child safety and these concerns, is this any win situation?
There is no win to this situation. If you take the kids out too soon, you get yelled at by parents for taking them out too soon. If you leave them in a day too long, they are injured or killed, and you get criticized for that. The staff is overwhelmed, the turnover is high, the pay is low. There is no glory in being the manager of the Department of Public Safety.
That's a really interesting point. The suit over foster care system, the idea that maybe was Flanagan's crowd, were they taking too many kids away from homes, not taking enough? Could that have been part of it?
Well, but a lot of the suit of foster care is what happens when they get into foster care, and were you providing the support services?
But I mean that's kind of out there.
Yeah.
Do you think that might have been a factor?
I mean, this is you read some of the examples that were cited in this federal lawsuit that was filed last week, and these things have been going on for a while. I mean, they were going on when Clarence Carter still had CPS under his watch. So
this is a lack of. I mean, if you talk to the legislature's leaders, Andy Biggs for one says they've got more money than they know what to do with over there. But if you look at the cuts to CPS or DCS over the years, the numbers, as the budget goes down, the number of people in foster care goes up. So it's.
And this gets down to the question of priorities that we've talked about. We're adding another maybe $100 million to the Department of Corrections because we certainly don't want to be seen as soft on crime. We're cutting universities by $75 million, and Lord knows what we'll end up doing with DCS.
We only got a couple of minutes left. Another change of agency. Will Humble is out at Health. What's that all about?
Will Humble, who's been head of the Department of Health Services for 6 years, announced his resignation today. He said that he just decided time is right, time to move on. And just last month, the governor named Humble as one of the first people that he's retaining. Humble said, look, when you sign up with the new governor, I take it as a 4-year commitment. I've been rolling that around, and I just...
And there are going to be budget issues in there. You've got a couple of things going on. They're taking behavioral health and putting it with the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, which may make some sense. Although, a lot of what Humble has been doing over the years is actually getting that fixed.
Yes.
And he's finally got it at the point where it's running well. And they're being told, okay, now that you fixed it, we're going to take it away. Well, what are we going to leave it? Well, you've got measles shots. You've got medical marijuana regulation.
And I should note that announcement to move the mental health services over to another agency and out of the Department of Health Services, that only came after Humble had accepted to stay on with Ducey. He had not, the budget was released
Okay.
about, I don't know, 2 weeks later.
That said, you always wonder what really is behind this. Did he not get along well with the governor's people? Was there some pressure being put on him? Who knows?
Well, see, I don't know that that's the case. Humble is he's very low key. He's tried to get along with everybody, and I can't see him as going head to head with the governor.
All right. Well, great conversation. Thank you all very much. Certainly appreciate it. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.